Hello and welcome back to Chatbot on Robot Republic. Today I'm joined by a very special guest because I have Henrik with me here. Hello, Henrik.
Hello.
And Henrik, you are working on you're a solo developer and you're working on this really awesome action side-scrolling adventure game, which is currently titled Project Beyonder.
Yes, that's correct.
Could you tell us a little bit about the game? Because I've seen loads of footage and stuff, and there's going to be a box somewhere on screen, or there'll be a fade to some video footage and stuff of the game during the course of the interview. But can you tell us a little bit about the game, kind of where the inspiration came from, what type of game it is, what people can expect from it?
Sure. So Project Beyonder is my little hobby project I've been working on for a while. It is a 2D/3D platformer, action platformer. And I have taken inspiration from games like Mega Man and the Ori games as an inspiration of what kind of game I want to do. It's a mix of classic versus new type of platforming. And I'm trying to introduce things that I haven't really seen before or things I think is very fun. And maybe I can mash it together into something magical in the end.
Oh, that's brilliant. I mean, some of the footage and stuff that I've seen for the game prepping for this interview it looks visually stunning. Like it's just this. Oh yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because it is just like visually, it's gorgeous. You've got these like interesting neon lights and everything.
It's all about being able to polish a turd in the end. So no, but I really enjoy neon colors and such, and it's just kind of grown from what I started working. Like I've been very inspired by the art style of the Ori and the Blind Forest games because they have such interesting colors. It's colors you don't really see normally in games, and I felt that was so interesting to see if I can do something similar and maybe do a spin on it the way I would do it. And it just have kind of evolved into what it is right now, and it's there, but it's still kind of turd, but we'll see.
I mean, you say polish a turd. I mean, the game, it's so bright and vibrant. Like you say, kind of, I can see some of the kind of inspiration you've got from Ori in there with the color schemes and stuff, but it is just like, it's this really intriguing, like some of the lighting and the designing and stuff in it is absolutely brilliant. And you've done a lot of the kind of artwork and assets from this kind of on your own, haven't you?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. At least I've tried. Like I know 3D, I know 2D, so I try to do all the processes of what you do when you kind of try to make something, like sketch it down first and then make it into 3D. But of course, there's stuff that I try to mock up with maybe assets that you can get from Unity Store, for example, just to see kind of where you're aiming for. So but in the end, I'm gonna want to do my own stuff or tweak the stuff I have bought and try to use them for my purpose in that thing. Because there are stuff in a game that you might not likely notice that much, like trees in the backgrounds. And do you want to spend 3,000 hours in making a variety of trees, or do you want to make a really good platforming game and maybe take some shortcuts where it is appropriate, for example?
I mean, you say that. I mean, to be fair, like when you look broadly across the industry, there are so many games out there that just recycle assets because it does, like you say, it saves time. It's that difference between, do I want to focus on, like you say, building 3,000 trees, or do I want to focus on making a really good game? And actually, the focus on the really good game is the important bit. And the kind of the work that you put into this and stuff, even kind of like using, like you say, you've used some assets from the Unity Store, which is, it's a wealth of assets that are there, and the free assets are brilliant and the paid for assets are even better. But what you've managed to cobble together is a game that looks it is visually striking. I don't know, it gave me kind of like Ori vibes, but with kind of like this more neon like futuristic-y feel to it, which I thought was really brilliant and covered. When you started this project, did you have this kind of like vision in mind of this kind of like almost neon futuristic kind of like woodlandy setting, or was it going to be a little bit more subdued, more like Ori? Kind of how did that come about?
So I think a lot of ideas start out in a way you thought it would be, but most ideas grow from like you trying to do it and seeing what is not working. But I think I had somewhat of an idea that I wanted really bright colors, because something with neon colors and really, popping colors to me is very attractive. This for me, and I think a lot of other people might, be drawn to seeing that very interesting, like, way of making a game. I'm not saying I'm the only one doing this, but the games that do this, I find really interesting to look at, and it's like a joy to play them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kind of, I've always been one of those people when I'm playing a game where actually there are so many games out there that are, and they are, most of them are AAA, that are just intriguing mixes of browns and greens and grays, and it's all very like hyper realistic and stuff. But actually, like, to play a game that's a bit more stylized, a bit more visually interesting and stuff, I always find more, from a playing perspective, I find it a lot more engaging. And I think that was one of the things that really kind of like struck me and stuff when I was prepping for this interview, was actually just how striking these visuals are, and actually how, and then kind of like initially you're drawn in by the visuals, and then I was looking at the gameplay and the kind of the movement, and we'll get on for the kind of like the nitty-gritty programmy bits and bobs in a minute. But kind of what really stood out to me initially was that visuals, and that the visuals drew me in, and then from there I was like, wow, this gameplay is really good, it looks really fun, and I can't wait to play it. And so kind of thinking a bit more broadly about the game and stuff, obviously I'm going to make an assumption, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you must have done quite a lot of kind of like world building and stuff for this game. And kind of how did you kind of think about that kind of world building and the narrative threads and stuff that kind of go into this? Was that something that, like, I mean, obviously design processes and the kind of creative processes develop over time and stuff, but again, was that kind of like, did you start with this idea that you want to have this really, really bright neon colored world, or was it more, I've got a story and I need to think about a world? Kind of how did that process kind of like fit together really in the weird jigsaw puzzle that is creative processing?
All right, so the initial idea is that, first of all, I wanted to make a game. That was the initial idea. So I figured, okay, I want to make a 2D platformer. That's probably a good start somewhere. But then, like, I like to just think about ideas when I have a walk or I could go to the gym or something. And I think this just popped up one day of this character, this fox girl, and I started building upon that character. What is her world? What is the goal of this game? What is she fighting for? What is maybe her friend circle like? What are the creatures in this world? So it sort of started with just one little thing that successfully grew more and more and more, because just you answer or you question, like, how would this world look like that this character lives in? And I think if you can sell it in a way that it makes sense, then I think more people will enjoy it more as a world that you would like to be in, perhaps, or you would like to see more of and learn more of. And yeah, it's sort of just like snowballed pretty much from one idea to a character to this world, pretty much. And it just happened, and then I experimented a bit with the ideas.
Oh, that's brilliant. And yeah, like you said there, kind of starting off with a small idea and just watching it snowball and stuff is just, at times it's absolutely fascinating, and you kind of sit there and go, oh, that's an interesting idea, and oh, I can link that in, and oh, we can do all these things, funny things and
Yeah,
whatnot. But starting off with, I like the fact that it was just like, I want to make a game, and then from there you were like, oh, and I've got this idea and I'm going to build it and I'm going to play it. Oh, that's really, really cool and really interesting, thank you.
no worries.
Kind of thinking a bit more broadly then, because obviously the game, I believe, is being developed in Unity.
Yes.
Which is, to be fair, an absolutely brilliant engine to build stuff in. Kind of how did you handle, because obviously, like you said, initially it was going to be a 2D platformer, but it seems it's kind of like that 3D, or yeah, it's 3D, but it's kind of, from a side scrolly perspective, it's kind of, it looks 2D until you kind of look at like rotational animation stuff. Kind of how did you handle, because programming and developing stuff in Unity is slightly more simplistic than it is in Unreal, because Unreal at times can be horrible. How did you kind of handle that overall kind of development process of kind of taking this, I want to make a game and I've got this character and I've got this world and stuff. How did you kind of work through that process in Unity?
So honestly, like if you look at it just like a game, a 3D platformer or 3D 2D platformer and a 2D platform is pretty much the same thing when you're programming it. It's only that you have this dimension of depth that is visually almost like a thing that you need to care about. Because I kind of went through this process when I was making the game and looking at how you do 2D games. Like I looked through tutorials just to see like how to solve things. It turns out the same like approach is applicable on 3D if you do a 2D platformer, 2D/3D platformer. So in a sense, it was kind of simple to just start out because there's so many good people out there doing really good tutorials showing you how to think about things. So I started out just doing boxes. Like, can I make this box jump? Can I make it do a double jump? Can I do it like a wall jump? And that just grew because if I cannot make this box game play fun, then I should not maybe go forward with that. So the core needs to be really good, I felt. So I just made it really fun to just play boxes in the beginnings. And then when I saw this thing that was just boxes running around and jumping and doing double jumps and having fun with it, then I think, oh, if I slap something really nice on it, I am a really good part into making a game. I felt.
Absolutely. And I like the fact as well that early development, it was just like, I'm just going to use boxes. And if the gameplay is fun with the boxes, then I'll take all these ideas that I've got and we'll turn them into a game. And that's, I think that in terms of games design, games development, that's so important, is that core gameplay loop has to be fun.
Yes, people will see if it's not fun, or they will feel that it's not fun.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then you shouldn't go forward and try to kind of duct tape it to be better with something that looks pretty, because that's not what the game should be about. In short, games can be really pretty. That's really good. But I think there should be something also that balances up the prettiness with something really fun to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you banged the nail on the head there of what kind of underpins good game design really is actually you need to have, the game needs to be fun. Obviously fun is a very broad subjective term, but
true. Very true.
We're all gamers. We know what to expect if we've got an action platformer. We know what we're going to be kind of expecting. And actually, if the core gameplay is just you jump once and then you're on a platform, that's not as exciting as jumping. And like there are some really cool things. We'll come on to I want to talk about the kind of the physics development and the programming stuff in a minute, and I will get there. And I'm like reining myself in slightly. But there are some really, really cool mechanics in there. Like you've got like really awesome wall jumping sequences. You've got like these big gaps. You've got like an awesome dash mechanic, which we're going to talk about as well, because that excited me. So kind of, I think it's really nice to hear you kind of talk about actually the core gameplay needed to be really solid before I went on. And actually that's really awesome. And yeah, I love that. So kind of thinking a bit more broadly, we've talked about kind of like the general assets for the game. The one thing I wanted to talk to you about were our main character and the really awesome, incredibly bright, luminescent neon weapons that she wields. Kind of because you created the Fox character, the kind of the main character, the Fox character in the game, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of when you were modeling and rendering her, kind of, were you thinking about kind of having a broad range of weapons for the combat stuff, or was it kind of like more of that came later sort of thing?
So yes, I had an idea that I wanted her to wield different kinds of weapons. Now that idea has slightly changed, but it's still she wields different kinds of weapons. Like from the beginning, I wanted her to have maybe a sword, maybe a spear, a bow, maybe some, I don't know, some punching knuckles and such. But later on, actually, it's a really funny like story. It's my friend who works in game development as well. He made a little sketch for my game, like, oh, all about this idea. So he drew my character with a spear, and she was doing some funny like pole jumping animations in that sketch, and that kind of triggers a lot of ideas for me because I had gotten a sword working, but I was struggling with like it was not that fun. It was very like slow and not really pacing well with what I wanted with the game. And then I started making this spear instead, and things just started to click with the previous gameplay. So because that was more fast, more agile, more you could use it to as a I say like a support weapon as well. Like you could bounce on it, you could just may launch yourself up in the air. So it sort of became now the main weapon, and I think that's what I'm going to stick with because it's really fun. But I can make variety of different spears that have different abilities instead, and still keep this really fun gameplay loop that I have right now. So I think I'm onto something there, at least. I
Oh,
think.
absolutely. And I mean, it's a
Yeah,
bit different as well. You know, there are so many games out there where your primary weapon is a sword, actually,
true.
and
And
it's
that's one of the things I thought about because yes, swords are cool, but maybe try a spear. I thought when I saw the sketch, and I'm so happy I tried. And he who made that sketch is like he's brilliant with coming up with that idea. So he opened up a door to me.
brilliant. And that's awesome, and that's really cool. And you know, like we said, spears are just interesting. I remember like slightly off the topic, but I remember when I was playing through Hades initially, they give you a sword, and I was like, "Oh, great, another game with a sword." And then it was like, "And here is a spear, and here is some no, here are all these other really fancy things." And all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh, this is exciting."
Yeah,
Oh,
can
and
try that.
actually,
Yeah.
the spear in Hades is probably one of my favorite weapons. And actually, I'm like, even at the moment, I'm playing Elden Ring still because I've not beaten it yet because it's too hard. But even in that, I'm not using the standard sword and shield thing because I think actually there are lots of different weapons in video games and people put them in there for a reason. Actually, it's really cool that you've decided to actually give this main character a spear. And I think it adds, when I was looking and did like kind of when I've been looking at kind of like some of your more recent posts on social media about the game, watching the fox girl run around with a spear looked really cool. Like just
Yeah,
like
it's the
visually.
biggest. Yeah, it felt more natural what she would use in that world because I'm imagining she's more of a tribal kind of person, and it would make more sense that she would wield a spear in that
Yeah.
sense. So it just matched up way better in that end.
Oh, that's amazing. So getting on to the bit that I'm really, really interested in. I mean, I'm interested about the whole game, but the bit that I want to talk to about was is rather the kind of the physics stuff that you've got going on, because there looks like there is really awesome kind of like physicsy based movement. There's physics based jumping puzzles and obviously lots of physics based platforming and stuff. Kind of when whilst you've been kind of like working and developing on this, kind of what have been some of the, or how have you kind of managed all of the kind of specific physics based movements, kind of not just the kind of like the programming stuff but the animation stuff as well, because there are some really awesome animations that are linked to kind of like the double jumps and the dashes and all these other things.
I agree. Uh, I mean, I've sort of done it by trial and error. I sort of mix like my own physics with the physics that Unity use, which is like it's based in reality how physics works, and that's great. But there's some things you sort of want to tweak a little bit because maybe you want your character to float a little bit longer than like I mean you and I we can't jump for more than 5 seconds, so we sort of
Do our
you need to do
best.
some tweaks to that physics. So I'm tweaking with a little bit of my own physics, but it's in the ground it's like based on real physics, like how much gravity is and such. But maybe just I tweak a little bit, like how much gravity is affected on the character in specific moves and such. And yeah, I was at the animations. Oh, you should not see my animation tree. That's just a mess right now. But I need to clean it up because I need to make a new model of my character anyways to make new better animations, because this what I have right now is just it's a like a white boxing. It's just a test character that I want to use. It's just for testing, but then make the actual design of the character later. But yeah, so I think animations and physics has to go hand in hand. You sort of have to try out what happens like in the how do you know if your double jump spin is going to work with your upwards movement for what's it called like the force that you use of upwards movement. How will that look? So it's a lot of trial and error, to be honest. But absolutely one of the hardest things, and what I've learned from watching other videos about game development, is the wall jumps and wall slides. They're horribly hard to make, and I understand why there are not so many out there that is really good. Like there are some really good ones. Like if you look back, like Mega Man X had a really good wall jump, but I kind of introduced something really good. But recently, actually, It Takes Two, if you've ever played that game,
I have.
That has a really good wall jump and wall slide, because it sort of makes you, I'm dumb, I'll help you with your wall jump. Here you go.
That's what I found was doing. It works really well if you're playing it on solo player. If you're playing it with a friend, however, it then becomes very problematic because they're just like, I'm just going to let you fall.
Yes, exactly. So I understand now why it's so hard to make good wall jumps, but I think I have something there that kind of works good. I just need to tweak it to be, just right, pretty much.
Oh, that sounds brilliant. And it's like you say, there is so much physics going on in this game in terms of like the movers. I mean, you just generally it looks amazing. It looks so fun, but from a development perspective, I can completely understand how much time you must have spent on this stuff.
Too much, to be honest. I think I spent most of my time in just that thing of the game, but eventually you get good at it and you understand sort of your own mind, like how it should work.
Oh, that's brilliant. And so exciting as well. Like, yeah, must have. I mean, I have to admit, it must have been a pain in the backside for you initially trying to get these things to work.
Oh yeah,
I could.
So many hours of like, why am I stupid? Why can I get this to work?
Sounds like the standard game dev mindset, to be fair. Something doesn't work. Why isn't it working? Oh God, I must be stupid. Oh wait, it's working. Oh no, it's broken again. Why is it broken? I must be stupid. Rinse, repeat.
Yes. Yep. A lot of times it's just you being stupid for the most part.
Oh, brilliant. The next thing I want to talk about, because obviously you have, as we've already talked about, you have this really awesome spear weapon in the game. How did you handle programming the kind of different combat based activities and some of the combat kind of, because you can use the spear to help you with the platforming as well, from some of the clips I've seen and stuff. So kind of how did you handle the kind of like the sorting out of that, kind of like working out where the spear would be useful for kind of platforming puzzles and how the spear would be useful in combat? How did you handle that stuff? Because that must have been almost as painful as the wall running and the wall jumping.
To be fair, actually, that was the easy part of the game, because I've done shooting games before, and throwing a spear is not too different from shooting like a bullet from a gun, pretty much. And as Unity is really good at like shooting things or make them launch things, it's pretty. It was pretty easy to just get something to work. But then again, like if you want to do really good game design, that's a different topic. Like that takes a lot more time to just try things out. Like I had no clue, for example, what these things would end up being, because I haven't seen like games doing much of these things I'm doing. There are games that do stuff that I'm doing, but like combining them, it's not that many. So it's not something you can really look up like, oh, how do I do a spear bounce gameplay level? I have no clue. But then you just kind of have to figure out like, okay, how does this ability work? What is fun about it? And when should I use it? Should I use it a lot or should it be sparse with it? So there's a lot of just trying things out, and I think that's a lot of game developers do that. They just try
Yeah.
things and see if it works, and then if they feel like it feels good and it kind of is fun to play, then you go towards that and maybe use it in different spots in the game. So
No,
you learn from your own project pretty much.
absolutely. I'm kind of thinking about the kind of like, the combat elements and stuff. When you were kind of thinking about like from both a design and a kind of programming and development perspective and stuff, kind of how did you handle, because there are a range of combat and enemies in the game, and there's also a range of various platforming hazards and stuff. Kind of when you were thinking about the game in terms of a development cycle and stuff, did you think this is a platformer, therefore it needs to have these platforming hazards in it, or did you think this needs, I'm just going to completely bespoke this, I'm going to have some random enemies that fly, we're going to have some ground-based enemies, we're going to have some random moving platform things? So was it kind of looking at what has come before, or was it original ideas, or was it a merge of both, really?
I think definitely I looked at what has been before. There's a lot of really good stuff in game development and classic game development that sort of set the path for many of us, like how to do a platform, for example. But then again, I also want to try new things, maybe that not many have done before or hasn't been done that much. Maybe it works better in my game, or maybe it doesn't. So I think a lot of times I look at it like, is okay, so this spear works like this. What type of enemy could I then want? What would I want to defeat with it? What would I want to fight with it? So then I tried out some different kinds. I figured out early that I made some very short enemies, and you can't really throw the spear that like low in the game. So it just passed them above their head. So like, that's not fun. I should maybe not do that. But then I figured out, okay, maybe I can throw the spear diagonally downwards and hit it. So that kind of made that enemy, like it had a purpose. Like, okay, it's hard to hit forward, like horizontally, but if you jump and shoot downwards, then you can defeat that enemy. So it becomes like this little puzzle, like how you defeat each enemy and such, and you learn from that. And if you get really good, maybe you're really good at like speed running a game like that. And yeah, I think it's just a lot of puzzle solving, like
Yeah.
what kind of fun enemies can you solve puzzle with, and then what would be fun to fight and defeat, have a challenge with.
I think I was going to say as well, like you mentioned speedrunning there. I remember one of the things I kind of watched about the game was you did an interview with the Icon, I think last year at some point.
Yes.
Or I say 2022 for people that aren't watching this in 2020, in 2022. You did an interview with the Icon in 2021. Excuse me. And one of the things you talked about on there was kind of like actually not wanting this game to be in a kind of having this game kind of like set up so if people want to speed run it, they can. Kind of, did that come from a personal like, have you speed run games before, or was this kind of like actually people do these because it's another thing, it's something that they find fun, and you wanted to kind of put the ability for this to be done in there with the kind of like the ways in which you've done puzzles?
So I have not really done speedrunning. I think a period I really liked playing old Mega Man games because I could actually memorize some levels, but then my memory is not that good, so I can't do more than like 2 levels. But it was really fun. That really part. I could do stuff really fast and flawless. But then I kind of like discovered the scene of speedrunning. I can't remember when I discovered it, but I think it was through one of those big charity streams, like Games Done Quick, I think, and also Games Done Quick and such. And I saw players being really good at games, and I looked at like players who played Mega Man, and I discovered I was shit. I was really bad compared to them. But then I saw like how they could manipulate the game, and like how they could just break down a game and just beat it into submission. And that was really fun to see because I see that the community is just very passionate about the games they play and being the fastest and doing really cool skips and such.
Yeah.
So I figured like when I was making the game and I sort of made mistakes and made something that if you were really good at it, like an ability, you would go really fast doing it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's good if I kind of keep those in for those players to discover maybe some hidden tactics or maybe things I haven't even thought about because they're gonna break my game. I'm looking forward to it, and it's gonna look so funny when my game is broken eventually. But yeah, I think it's a really good community, and I think it's something you can easily put into your game, like help out speedrunners with maybe tracking time, for example, that could help out, and maybe do some simple stuff like, oh well, I can disable cutscenes if I have cutscenes in my game to just help them play the game as fast as possible. So I think that it's a cool community, and I want to add stuff to my game to help those players who wants to speed run my game if they want to speed run my game. Maybe it's not that fun, but who knows?
I mean, to be fair, from what I've seen so far, with like all of the imagery and stuff in the game, it looks amazing. And I've looked at it. I have attempted to speed run a game once, and it didn't end well because I just ended up watching the cutscenes. Everyone's like, "Oh no, skip the cutscenes if you're going to speed run." I'm like, "Yes, I'm going to speed run this game," and was like, "Oh, cutscene, this is exciting," because I remember this one. And then I was like, "Oh well, that's just completely that's a waste of time now, isn't it?" I've failed at speed running, but I think it's really nice how actually you're thinking about not just the kind of the core gameplay community, but actually kind of this broader community. Because speedrunners are like, it's an art form. I've watched loads of videos about loads of people playing loads of different games. You know, people that have played, Ori. They've speedrun things like Ori and like old school Mega Man, old school Castlevania, and Metroid games, right the way through to people that have done speedruns mind-blowingly of things like Bloodborne and Dark Souls. And those, and I just, it's like you say, it's an art form, the way in which they kind of like they break down, right? So I can skip this bit by getting this route, and I can fall through some scenery that's not been properly rendered here to jump past that boss and all these other things. And it's just
exactly.
like mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's just because the programmer is just stupid and hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I'll use that to my advantage.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where and it's like at times you watch this and you're just like, wow, it's like amazing. I remember watching a speedrun of someone playing the Resident Evil 2 remake, and they beat Mr. X. No, they didn't beat Mr. X. They beat William Birkin in the sewers with a combat knife. And I was just sitting there just like, how have you done this? I just it just blew my mind. It's really awesome that actually you're thinking about that kind of broader community as well, because like you say, it is fun to watch these people play these games. And actually, if you've made something to watch people break it, you're sitting again, didn't think about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
I look forward to seeing you go on the IGN speedrunner thing. Game devs react to speedruns.
Oh, you can only hope.
Kind of thinking more broadly about the project then, because obviously the project is, like we've kind of discussed and stuff, it's been kind of like quite a big undertaking and stuff, but it's been a real kind of like passion project and stuff. What have been kind of like some of the more significant challenges? Obviously, we talked about the kind of, the joys of programming in like wall jumping and wall sliding and stuff, but kind of what have been some of like the big sticking points during this development process?
I think the biggest thing is to kind of hone in the idea of the game. It's very easy to just make something and it just grows and grows and grows and grows. And then you have something that's maybe way too big for you to handle. So that's sort of one of the hardest thing to do, is like cut stuff that might not be good for a game, but they could be fun, but maybe not for this game, or maybe for something later on, perhaps. And it can be hard because you create something that's, I made something really cool. It wasn't that good, but it was cool.
Yeah.
But then, okay, maybe it's better to not use it for this game or this project. Maybe save it for something else, or maybe when you understand how to make a game like that better, maybe use it there later on. So I think cutting and keeping the scope is, I think a lot of game developers have that problem. Because it's easy that it just grows and grows, and because you want to release it eventually. Sure, it takes time to make games, but you don't want to spend 15 years on making a game, and maybe it flops. Who knows? things can happen like that. It maybe it's not the game for everyone, or who knows. So I rather keep it to. I try to keep it to a set time at least, to keep myself sane as well. Because motivation is something you need to keep up when
Yeah.
you work on a game that takes so long to do. So I mean, it will go up and down all the time. So you kind of have to, I don't know, seek inspiration to boost yourself a lot during the process. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. Just you keep yourself on track, and keeping yourself inside of the track pretty much all the time. That's probably the hardest things with a game like this. And yeah, of course, it comes with the like marketing yourself. Like
Yeah.
if you're not used to marketing yourself, that's really hard in the beginning because you're like, oh, I wanna bother people. It's
Yeah.
gonna, I'll show it when it's done. But that's kind of dumb. I think a dumb approach in a way, because if you don't show yourself a little bit now and then, how will people discover you or find your project? Maybe then when you release it, no one knows about you
Yeah.
or your game. So that's another like big thing that's pretty hard. If you're not so good at want to show yourself, then it can be pretty hard in the beginning to just open up and show who you are pretty much.
Yeah. And I think that that's something that's kind of important, especially within the indie sphere as well, because there are loads of really, really good indie developers out there. And like you say, it's that kind of, some of them don't quite feel very comfortable with the kind of, we have social media. Yes, there are negatives with social media, like there are with a lot of things. But like
Yeah,
you say, kind of actually utilizing the ability to reach hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people through hashtags and stuff like that on social does help. And I think that's
yeah,
something really important. And as well, I think going back to the earlier point you made about kind of actually self-editing and kind of controlling your ideas, not letting them fly off on a tangent, is something else that's really important. I know that I've worked on projects before and I've just been like, and this, and this, and this, and then I've got about 3/4 of the way through and I've gone, oh dear God, I've gone overboard. What do I do?
oh yeah, and everyone does this. Like it's not just like you or those randos. Everyone does this. It just happens. It's you're too excited to make a
Yeah.
game that it just grows too much.
Yeah. And that's when you have to stop yourself and go, sequel possibly, different project possibly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe store this idea for later.
Yeah.
It's a
So
great idea.
we'll put that in a box over there that just says future projects. And we might come back to it.
Exactly.
Oh, Henrik, it's been brilliant. My last question is, I ask it to everyone who comes on the show. Kind of what is next for both Project Beyonder and these potential future projects that we've just mentioned about these ideas that you've gone, oh, no, maybe later. So yeah, kind of what can we expect next from you guys kind of over the course of the next 6 to 12-ish months, sort of vaguely?
All right. So like this year, I kind of wanna take the next step with the game and sort of put it out on like a storefront, like Steam or similar places where you can wishlist. So that's the next thing I want to do, and it is a lot of administrative stuff going like behind when you do these kind of things, and that's what's taking time all of the time. But that's one thing, like getting the Steam page up and running, so people who are interested can follow along, wishlist it if they want to maybe know when it's get news like release dates and such. I'm planning also being on, if you ever heard about the pitch your game hashtag that's been used. I think it was last year it was the first time, and it was very successful
Yeah, I think it
from
was.
what I could read and research about. I missed it with just like a month, and I discovered it too late. So because people ask me, why weren't you on that hashtag? Like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't even know what there. So I am planning to get that up and running and such. Just getting the word out about my project and see if people are interested. Because as I saw, a lot of big like producers and such took notice of this, so it was cool to see. So that's for Project Beyond, at least just getting it out there, and then of course, working more on it and getting maybe a demo ready for later this year, so I can show people more how you actually play it and how it feels and such. And yeah, I think the most of my priority is going to be on my project. But who knows? Maybe when I get done with it, I want to explore those ideas I have for other. Maybe do a, I don't know, 3D platformer instead, or maybe something action oriented. Who knows?
Oh,
I have
that
some
sounds
ideas that I
amazing.
want to explore.
Oh, exciting times. And, you know, definitely, I know that, you know, we all here at the Robot Republic are going to be watching this project, and when it becomes available on the wish list, it will be going on wish lists. And, you know, if a demo does drop, I will definitely almost certainly be streaming that, because it
Yeah,
looks so
I'll make
good.
sure. I'll make sure to reach out to people who wants to try it out.
Oh,
For sure.
brilliant. Henrik, thank you so much for coming on the show. Last little bit, where can people find you and information about Project Beyonder?
So you can find it on my social medias. It's Nestash on Twitter, Instagram, and would you believe it, even TikTok. I don't understand TikTok, but I try.
Me either. Me either. I look at TikTok and I'm like, I don't understand it. It's like Vines, but now there's an app for it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I'm glad I've met someone in the same mindset as me. I feel old at times because I just look at people like, oh, what's that?
I feel very confused when I go in there sometimes.
It just makes no sense. I have no idea what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I'm just like, it's on my phone. It never gets
Yeah.
touched. It's just there.
I try at least. So
Oh, brilliant. Well, Henrik, thank you so much for coming on the show. And if you're watching this and you want to find out more about Project Beyonder, do go and follow Henrik on all the socials to find out more about this amazing game. And let us know in the comments below what you think about it and what you're excited for about this game, because it does honestly look brilliant. Henrik, like I said, thank you for coming on the show.
thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. And if you like this video, on the screen somewhere, floating around somewhere, there will be links to our other chatbots, which obviously were me talking to other developers and other people that are game industry adjacent, similar to what we've done here with Henrik today. And please do remember to like and subscribe to the Robot Republic for all of our amazing content. Thank you very much, Henrik, and to everyone watching, we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.